Hello again, everybody that is seeing us, and great that you are probably back to another short talk of WESCO. This series of talks that we've decided to make around the world with people around the world, but with the directors of our organization to show you the thoughts of WESCO and the people who are inside WESCO at this present time. And this episode number 4 is with Morgan Palmer. Hello, Morgan. How are you?
Hi there, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Great. I'm fine. Also, you're based on England, yes?
Yes,
Right?
yes, in the UK.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm talking from Portugal. So we are in a European environment.
Yes.
Well, not for much long because of Brexit.
Not for much longer.
A European environment, at least today.
Yes.
It still is. So, people, I'm here with Morgan. Is the head of university and school esports department of WESCO. I'm the director of the institutional relations of WESCO, and we're gonna start this conversation as we start all the talks, and by presenting the people that is interviewed, and with the main question: why he is in esports, and how did he get in esports, and what is his connection to esports? Please, Morgan.
Yes, so I've been playing video games for years, ever since I was small. Probably because of my brother introducing it to me, and me and him being very competitive. And growing up, when I got really into sort of League of Legends and Counter-Strike, I used to watch it a lot, but I never knew that there was a scene for esports in the UK. I always thought that it happened in other places, not here. And then when I got into university, that's when I sort of had a crash course in what the UK university scene has to offer. We have a very one of the strongest in the world, actually, for university scenes. With we have the Newell and NSE, which are two sort of competing tournament organisers, and so that sort of pushed me into things like casting, doing tournament organisation, events management. I've been part of my society for 4 years. I've just handed it over, actually, which is quite sad, but it's good that I know it's in safe hands. So yeah, it was sort of, I think it came out of just sort of playing the games, then by extension of that, seeing these tournaments and these competitions and going, I want to be part of that. I'm not good enough at games to play. So I thought, how else can I be involved? And so that came through casting events, through, as I said, events organisation, as well as just helping organise teams. I just like being involved in it. I love esports. I love the tournament aspect. And so I just wanted to get involved. And as soon as I came to university and I saw that opportunity, I just leapt at it.
Great. That was about what year? Around probably how many years?
So that was probably 2016, 2017.
Okay.
When I first got involved with the university scene, and I've been doing that over the past 4 years.
Okay. And what is your experience about that environment regarding the other esports scenes and the other esports communities? I mean, what is the main differences? Because it's one of the things that is most commonly discussed worldwide, for my experience in other countries, is that if there are, one thing is the esports community, and if there are differences between the esports community around schools and universities, and then first to the competitive scene with teams and clubs, even if not the professional one. Okay, what do you feel, and what's your opinion about that?
So when it comes to the competitive community in the UK, there are a few barriers that we sort of have, and it changes game to game. The hardest thing is, although people play online and are competitive, the hardest thing is getting them there to a tournament. You know, you can't. It sounds silly, but you can't run a tournament without players. But actually getting the players there is one of the hardest things. And the challenges is that changes from game to game. For instance, say Rocket League or Overwatch, because of the age rating of the game, colleges and secondary schools, not just universities, can compete at it. So it's almost easier to find players for that. But then take Counter-Strike, take League of Legends, League players, because there's no LAN experience, don't like coming to LAN. So it's very hard to get them to come to the same spot and compete. It's the LAN scene for that doesn't exist. While the Counter-Strike scene, those guys are nomadic. They'll pick up their computer and they'll travel across halfway across the country just to compete in a tournament. They thrive on that in-person competitive experience. And I think we're slowly developing the attitude that Counter-Strike has across the other disciplines of this. It's worth coming to a tournament, even if you get absolutely smashed. It's worth it for the experience of learning, of playing against better players, being in that environment around a community. And we're starting to get there with fighting games like Super Smash Brothers. I know Street Fighter's always had a rather big scene in the UK. So we are getting there. It's just some of the games are slow to react when it comes to the sense of community, because there's barriers to entry. There's reasons not to go to LAN. You know, why would you travel when you can just play online at home and it would be the exact same experience? And so it's my experience is that these people require proof of concept. They need to see how good it is firsthand, and then they want to come again and again and again. It's very infectious, but it's hard to get them there in the first place to see just how good esports can be, especially the in-person, the physical experience of it.
Very, very interesting your insight on that, because it shows exactly that there is still a path to go to develop a little bit more of esports and to bring more people together, to involve more people. There is still a development in a good way, in an evolution. Of course, gaming has been around for many years. Gamers have been playing for many years, but there is still an upgrade to make, a positive one.
Yeah.
And in your experience, do you have any international comparisons? I mean, in university, have you challenged another? Have you experienced playing with another country, or your experience has been in the UK scene?
Yes, when it comes to the university scene, actually, the UK internationally we do quite well. In fact, my University of Salford, the Salford Esports Society, we actually won I think it's the European Rocket League University Rocket League Championship.
Congratulations!
Yeah, we came first in that, and I cannot take credit for it. Those guys, we've got some really talented players. The talent is there. It's just getting them to compete. We have Warwick University have done very well at the I think it's the European University Invitational, or something along those. Something along those lines, and they finished very well there. So we do well. I think it's the more opportunities we can provide, the better we'll get. In essence, I definitely think that we have the at least talent, the potential to be a top competitor.
Great. In that sense and in that environment, how do you see? I mean, you were invited at one point of your life, and in those years, to WESCO and to be a part of this project. What do you think that is? What do you feel there is still to achieve, and that can be done in a broader scope on esports? At least first, we can also talk about that. I have a personal opinion. One thing is the European environment. We started the conversation playing with that, but it's the European environment. Another thing is the world environment, international.
So one of it's something that didn't strike me until I was watching a sort of video documentary on it, is how it sounds simple, how important it is to improve the equal opportunities of countries which don't have as developed scenes, don't have the infrastructure of like stable internet, or maybe the political climate is not the best in relation to other countries. It's so important to not leave the players in those countries behind just because they don't have the same equipment, just because their country might be in a sort of turbulent time, doesn't mean that they should be stopped from playing and competing, and not just representing their country, but representing themselves. There was a couple examples that I saw which were very inspiring. Menard from the Dominican Republic. The story that, you know, he would play with blackouts going on where the electricity would cut out. He was in this dingy little basement playing, and he goes and wins $250,000, and he invests it back into the scene. He's supporting back into the ecosystem, and he put Dominican Republic on the map of being able to produce esports talent. And the same for Arslan Ash in I think it's Tekken from Pakistan. He came out of nowhere and absolutely dominated. And it shows, just because someone's not from a major region doesn't mean that they can't be competitive. You know, even in Super Smash Brothers, probably arguably the greatest full-time melee player is Armada, who's a Swedish player, and Europe is still looked down on for their competitive scene. Quite rightly so. They're not as good as the American scene, but it doesn't mean that they can't produce top-level talent. And one of the things that attracts me so much to WESCO is the fact that their reach isn't towards the top end of professional teams; it's towards the country level, where actually the grassroots support system, that's the most important thing. That's the barrier to entry, is getting that the interactions between the countries and how they understand esports. That's the most important thing for the community to grow and flourish and produce stars like Zero from Chile or Arslan Ash, Menard. There's so many examples. Even from the UK, we don't have a particularly, you know, we're not known for our strong players.
Yeah.
But in recent years, we've had like, I think it's Alfari as well, who plays in the LEC. There's Smuya as well, of course, who played for Big in Germany. You know, we're starting to produce the talent, and even though it's been hard for us, it must be so much harder for countries which don't have the support of an organisation like the British Esports Association and events that we have. So that's when I saw these videos and I thought that they've come across so much adversity and they're still doing so well and being top level competitors, it makes you wonder how many other potential players that we're missing out on just because they can't get out of their country to go compete. You know, so that for me was what I feel that WESCO can help. It can help these young players reach their potential.
And as you, it's curious because you've shown a lot of example of players, individual players, and in those countries it will be even more difficult to create teams, because so that's another step to some games, some esports modalities that you play as a team. So creating teams in those countries, it's even farther at this point.
Yeah.
So probably one last question. We were talking about WESCO, and regarding what you were said, it's very important also and WESCO is trying to do that, to create awareness on the public administrations of the governments of each countries. And in that sense, in that area, it's even more incredible because it has nothing to do with the development of the countries or where they are. Even in Europe, only inside Europe, there are completely different approaches nowadays regarding esports. What can you tell us about your experience regarding the UK, or specifically in England? How it's been supporting or settled in the public environment, the government, if education, if youth, if sports? What have you heard about that?
So you sort of got three players in the UK. You've got the university scene of Newell and NSC. You've got the British Esports Association, and then you've got the wider esports community. In the UK, none of the groups were that sort of influential. It was only until sort of the Season 5 League of Legends World Championship where they held the quarterfinals in the UK, and then the Face It Major came over. You've got events like the ECS CSGO tournaments. You're getting more and more tournaments. There shows that it sort of was proof of concept that the community is there who are interested in esports, and that sort of has pushed forward all these other areas. The British Esports Association is doing fantastic work. Their focus is on the below university level, so primary school and secondary school education. So that'll be ages anywhere between sort of 8 and it would be about just under 18.
Yeah, around that.
Okay. Yeah, and so they focus on tournaments to that for that extent. So that means when they come into university, we've already got very strong university leagues that they can compete in. It's that bringing it up, so it's aware at the bottom level, it's there at the mid level, and it's there at the top level. There's this. It's suddenly been catapulted into the public eye as a point of conversation, which it wasn't beforehand, but only because of that, all groups are all groups are benefiting from that. From like the severe top end, we've got Epic Clan, who do fantastic grassroots tournaments. They're the quintessential example of good grassroots practices in the UK. They partnered with Grosvenor Casinos and have been doing a huge sort of very huge for the UK prize pool to support UK Counter-Strike. And they've been doing it for the past 3 years. They've been very successful, and they've done a really, really good job of it. And that's because of the interest that all of these different areas are generating. It's like they're all feeding off each other, and it's only benefiting us. Players like Smooya going off and playing for international teams is just, now we see even more players coming up, like Thomas, who currently plays for Endpoint, but he did play for, I think it was the Smash roster for a little bit. And then in the UK, when it comes to League of Legends, we've got a lot of players. Rocket League, we've got a huge amount of players which represent us. So there's a lot of different factors, but slowly they're all starting to push together, and they're sort of impacting each other, but it's usually in a very positive way.
Okay. I was hearing you in the last question from my part, debating with you, and it seems that you don't, because one of the main areas of WESCO is contributing to regulation.
Yeah.
International regulations and international regulation. Because you said that there is a great work being done under 18, and that's, for me, it's almost crucial, because it's the formation of the athlete, the preparation, but afterwards, if you don't prepare also what's there outside, I mean outside university, in the normal world of competitive esports, you are preparing them for a leap, almost a leap of faith, but something to a totally private and particularly owned market. I mean, my question is, I know that in England there is not a great tradition, societally speaking, of regulation, of great intervention of the public administration by standardizing everything. But do you think in esports things are? That is my main question. If you think today in esports in UK or in Europe, but for your experience to compare with the other countries, everything is fine as it is. I mean, the development is okay. It's just being hanging as it is. Or what do you think it's still missing in the UK to give more security for the players, more rights for the players, more, if regulation is needed or not in your country? What do you think?
Well, I think it's tackling for me, it's tackling two very different issues. So one, if you're looking at the top end players, let's say it's the top players for each respective game in the UK. We definitely need regulations in the way of how contracts are signed, very basic boilerplate stuff that is applied to other sports and other professions to protect individuals who have something to offer. We definitely need more of a focus to make it more esports specific, the regulation. When it comes to the actual wider community, the grassroots, it's weird to say, the non-esports level, the non-pro level, I almost think that the government should encourage it, but they should try and stay out of it. Often with these, we've seen it with Overwatch League, with declining viewership. We've seen it with my mind's gone blank now. With Heroes of the Storm.
Okay.
Heroes of the Storm is when if you try to manufacture it too much, you actually end up losing that community grassroots. What gives the esport life? You end up losing that. Like Super Smash Brothers came out of people's basements since like mid 2000s. It almost died, and now they've got, when it comes to community engagement, they're one of the biggest of any esport. And even though their prize pools are still the smallest, it's almost impossible. If you look at the adversity that community has faced in terms of no publisher support whatsoever, fully grassroots supported. When they have had companies supported, Nintendo's blocked them with the MLG Pro Circuit back in, I think it's 2007, 2008. Like, and the scene's still going. So I think it could benefit, but I don't think it's necessary. The trajectory that the current community is on, I think, is a really healthy one. The focus of sort of the government regulating the sort of the youth aspect of up to 18-year-olds, then they have the university experience where there's already a very healthy established system. I think prepares people quite well, introduces them to the opportunities. I think after that point, it should have sort of let the community do what they want. When it comes to the pro level, I think that this is iterated across every single game, across every single country, is especially when you're dealing with young players. It's they don't understand the contracts they're writing. It's why would it be taught to them? And so that definitely needs to be there needs to be a support system in place for professional players in the UK, but also across other countries as well. Just having someone looking over a contract for them would be huge, and that should be standard practice everywhere to try and protect players. We've got very young Fortnite players, Luckily, their parents are, that they're on the ball and that they know what to look for. But
yeah, normally there are legal assistants to do that. But at least what you are saying, it's what is probably only missing in the ecosystem is that, or in the esports scene in UK, is probably a self-regulator entity for the players, something like
yes,
that. That's your. Okay. So
it's sort of very unclear. It's unclear at the moment for where, if there's an issue, where should you go? What court should you consult? What governing organisation should you go to? And I think that needs to be looked at to streamline that process.
okay.
I think I think the government could definitely support esports in a capacity like, say, Valve does. I mean, that's a bit of a tricky one, and they do good things and bad things. But Valve with their esports with Counter-Strike, where they support like the prize pool, but then hands off and let the companies which have been doing those tournaments for years run it probably better than they could if they tried to do it by themselves. So I think when it comes to community, sort of a hands-off approach. But when it comes to the top level players, it should be support for the regulations, the resources to make sure that they're in safe contracts which are in their best interest, and especially protecting younger players is hugely important. And I don't know what it's like in UK at the moment. We haven't had a huge scandal yet, but it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. And for peace of mind, I would like it if the government especially looked into that to make sure that it's okay if an event was to arise.
Okay, great. Okay, 25 minutes, perfect. To be a short talk is good timing. I believe, for my part, all the points addressed now, it were very interesting. And any special message, any last appointment, and something you would love more, any address you would love more to speak about, or are you happy with the talk?
I would just like to say I hope everyone keeps safe, yourself included, with everything going on. It's very hard times, but hopefully everyone, is staying safe. And just a thank you to WESCO and everything. It's been a really good experience for me. My mindset towards esports in the last 2 years has completely changed. I wasn't aware of the regulations and the importance of it and the importance that governing bodies played. And now my attitude is completely flipped. It's done a 180, and I've WESCO and the talks and conventions that happen where people can discuss these ideas hugely important. So just want to say thank you, and I hope everyone keeps safe.
Thank you also from our part. We'll probably talk again soon in another environment and with more directors of WESCO. We are planning to, after these one-on-one talks, probably start intercontinental talks, and that will be or continental talks or just European. So let's see how it goes. Thanks again, Morgan. Hope to see you again in the near future, and stay well also. Stay safe. Thank you very much.
See you later.
Bye.